using time well. Oh, and thank you very much, Abby. We are just started the recording, so we'll start over. Oh, good, and we're going to have Donna back on, so she can probably do the polls for us. So approaching the webinar is Donna Moreno, and she is our wonderful partner with the Fresno State Alumni Association. And so she's going to be helping us out as well. So we are blessed with a fabulous team. So using time well is, of course, something that I think we are all incredibly interested in. And on the screen right now, there's my Twitter and Instagram handle if you want to continue the conversation. And also if you want to talk about this particular webinar or any of our webinars, you know, it'd be fun if you wanted to use the hashtag MCJ Adulting. So we'll go ahead and start with a poll. And Donna, are you available to do the poll? Is that going to work?
Yes, I'm here now.
Okay, excellent, wonderful. So we'll start with our first poll. So folks, get ready. All right, so the first poll, on a scale of 1 to 5, how well do you use your time right now? 1 being not so great and 5 being great. So where are you at? All right. We're waiting on, okay, we have got one. We've got everybody there. Okay, so you can see the results. 64% of folks feel that they're right in the middle. And then we have a couple of 1s and a couple of 2s. So that is wonderful. That's why you're here this afternoon, in order to be a 5, right? By the time our afternoon is over. So thank you. All right. So we're going to talk a lot about a lot of things this afternoon, and we're going to get very tactical, but we're also going to be a little bit philosophical. So you will see slides that deal with both of these areas. I'm also going to be giving you a lot of information, and a lot of which you'll be able to implement right away, a lot of which you'll want to think about a little bit, and some of it might not resonate with you, and that is okay. My goal is to provide you with stuff that will be valuable and that you can use in your life. So we're going to start sort of at the 50,000 foot level with the big picture. So in order to use your time well, one of the most important things to start is to think about who you want to be. Who do you want to be in the world? How do you want to show up in the world? What do you want people to think about you? What do you want your legacy to be? What do you want your life to be like? And I know these are really, really big questions, but they really do have a lot to do with using your time well and setting up your schedule. Because once you have a really clear picture of who you want to be, then the best thing to do is to set up your calendar to match who you want to be. And this is pretty deep, the next slide. But ideally, when people look at your schedule, they should see your values. And that's not something that we typically think about or maybe talk about when we talk about time management or using your time well. But I think this is really an important place to start. You know, if someone looked at you know, your screen on your computer when your calendar was up, or they, you know, took your planner and opened it up to this particular week, you know, the things that are on there, the things that you're spending your time on should be the things that you find most valuable. And if that's not the case, that's what we call an area of opportunity. And if that is the case, then we can most definitely give you 100 goals to ours. And you will teach this workshop next year. So it'll be great. So now we're going to do poll number 2. Get a little more info on folks. All right, what type, oops, that would be a typo. What type of calendar do you use? Digital, paper, both? Or maybe you're just like not into calendars. Obviously, I was thinking a lot about time when I wrote time instead of type. So you can maybe forgive the typo. All right, waiting for a couple more folks. Okay, so we have half of our folks doing both digital and paper, and then about 40% that are all digital. And then we've got one that is not like in a calendar right now. So we'll talk about all of that, of course. Thank you. And then poll number 3 to give us a little bit more information about you guys. So we're kind of split on the paper and the digital calendar. So now we're going to talk about what kind of to-do list do you use? Do you like a paper to-do list, a digital to-do list, or both? Or maybe you don't like to-do lists. And by paper, let's be honest, we're probably talking about sticky notes because, you know, those of us who like this kind of thing tend to like sticky notes. But if you use other paper too, of course, that's fine. All right, and we have a lot of both. So 60% of our folks both. We've got a little under 20% that are solely with digital, and then a big percentage, 42%, really enjoy the paper to-do list. That's very helpful. Thank you. All right, so let's talk about this. So in order to use your time well, we've already discussed that you want to think about who you want to be, and you want to match your calendar to those values. And the next thing we want to talk about is this idea of having a system. So in order to use your time well, I have not found a way to do this without having a system to manage my time. And I do a lot of reading about productivity. I listen to a bunch of podcasts. I have co-authored 3 books, and each of them have had a huge section in them about how to use our time well. So I am definitely a major nerd when it comes to this particular topic. And in everything that I have found and practiced myself, there are 3 things that any system must have. And how those 3 things manifest themselves is really flexible, but we really can't use our time well unless we have these 3 different things. And again, this is my opinion, but I'm sharing with you what has worked for me and what has worked for the folks that I have worked with. The only rule for your system is that you use it. So again, how we implement these 3 components is totally flexible, but nothing is going to work if you don't use your system. So that's something that we have to think about as well. So number 1 component is a calendar. And again, digital, paper, to be honest with you, it really doesn't matter. But there's a couple of things I want to share about the calendar piece. So the first thing, oops, I won't show that yet. The first thing is that your calendar, of course, is where you're going to put all of your appointments, right? Where you're going to put the places where you have to be is typically the best use of your calendar. So things that are date specific, places that you need to go, responsibilities that are attached to a particular day and time. Calendars are fabulous for helping us track that. So the calendar is a really great tracking tool for where we're supposed to be and when. I personally love digital calendars because I like the ability to sync the calendar on all of my devices. So when I input something in my calendar on my phone, the next time I'm at my laptop, it's also on my laptop. So that is one way that a digital calendar can really serve you. These days, we are very rarely without our phones, and so you can always have access to your full calendar. And the nice thing about that is that when you're having a conversation with someone, you will be able to tell them, you know, right away if you are available for a particular thing that you're being included in. So that's one advantage over digital. However, if you're using paper, completely fine. You just need to make sure you have a process to keep it current. So some people choose to take their paper calendar with them everywhere they go. That's great. That obviously will solve any problems. That is the same thing as syncing, right? Between devices. You are just syncing to your bag, your backpack, your purse, whatever. If you don't take your paper calendar with you, you're going to want to have a way to make sure that it always has the most up-to-date information. So one thing that I've seen work really well is folks will use the notes feature on their phone for things that need to eventually go into the paper calendar. And so when when they're out in the world and they need to write something for their calendar, they put it in the paper, in the notes section of their phone. And then the minute they get back to their paper calendar, they'll open up the notes and transfer that information. So if that works best for you, I know a lot of people really enjoy the idea of having a paper calendar and really enjoy writing things down. It can absolutely work if you keep that paper calendar up to date. If it's not in sync with all of the responsibilities and things that you've committed to, that's when people typically will have a little bit of a challenge. So calendar is job one. The to-do list is job two. We have to keep track of the tasks that we need to accomplish on a regular basis. How you organize your to-do list, what type of methodology you use for your to-do list is really up to what works for you. As I mentioned, this only works if you implement it. So if you love a digital to-do list, that happens to be me. I use the app Evernote, which has this is not a commercial. It does have a free version. Anyone who's had me as a professor knows that I don't like anybody to spend money. So you can certainly use a free version of Evernote, and then they also have a subscription version as well. The reason I love Evernote for my to-do list is because, again, it syncs on all of the different platforms. And so I always have an up-to-date to-do list. Some folks prefer paper to-do lists, like some of you on this call, which again is great, as long as you make sure that you're writing stuff down on your to-do list. So having a way to know what you're supposed to do and when is incredibly important to all of this. And we'll obviously talk about these things in more detail too. And then the third component of using your time well is to have a place to capture ideas, future to-dos, etc. Because obviously your to-do list is not going to have, or shouldn't have, everything that you need to do for the entire duration of the semester, for example. However, you do want to remember that those things need to be done, and so they need a place to live. And so you definitely want to have a place where you can capture, things I want to do in 10 years, things I want to do in 5 years, things I want to do when I get my first home, things I want to do when I redecorate my apartment, names for my first pet, right? Name for my next pet. So there are all these things that we want to make sure that we are keeping track of. And so we need to have a system for that. Again, paper is completely fine. You can have a notebook, different sections. That's all good. You can have different notebooks, different notes on your phone. I again happen to use Evernote for that. I have all kinds of notes that are for all kinds of things that I want to remember for the future. I of course have, by months, and I also have, a fall 21 list, a spring 22 list, and then I have a list for after that, because just writing down fall 22, I don't know about y'all, feels a little overwhelming from a to-do list perspective. So we just put those in the future category. So the system is comprised of these three things. So we'll start there. And then another important thing about using your time well is the adopting this fabulous habit of doing your MITs first. And what I mean by MIT is most important things. So actually, Carly, if you can write in the chat that MIT means most important things, because we are going to be talking about MITs throughout the afternoon. So in order to do your MITs first, you obviously are going to need to know what those are. And so your most important things are the things that move you closer to accomplishing whatever your goals are. So these tend to be, the most significant projects. These need to be the most important phone calls. These tend to be, the most important draft of a cover letter. So the things that are so important that if at the end of the day you don't accomplish them, you will feel sad, that's what gets into the MIT list. Obviously, since you're going to be doing these first and you have other things that you will be doing throughout the day, this list can't be very long. So typically you'll want to decide how much time you have for your MITs and then select the number of them accordingly. But I really encourage you to get into the habit of doing them first. And you'll notice that the slide has some pretty dramatic, crazy, controversial language. And that is that I want you to do them before you check your email, before you check social, before you literally do anything else. you can get very, very lost in the sea of email and social if you allow yourself to. And you also know that often those things don't necessarily contain your most important things for the day. I promise you will have time to check your email, you will have time to check social, all of those things. But if you start your day there, you're probably not going to finish what you want to accomplish. So in your schedule, figure out, okay, you can carve out an hour each morning or 2 hours each morning. I definitely think an hour is a minimum. And before you do anything else, you work on those MITs. And then after your hour or 2 hour, that's when you can dive into email and social. A lot of times people are nervous about this because they think, oh my gosh, what if there's an emergency or whatever? If there is a true emergency, folks will have tried to get a hold of you in a different way. And there's very few things that can't wait an hour before you address them, via email or social. So make the habit of doing your MITs first, and I promise you, you will be a much happier human being. The note there is really important because this may philosophically sound super great to you, and you may be like, I'm in MITs, woo, go, go. However, this is harder than it sounds to actually implement. So you really want to be prepared. You really want to not open your email window on your laptop before your MITs are done. You probably want to turn your phone over and put it on silent when you are working on your MITs. Do whatever you need to do to avoid distractions, because all of these things are I like to think of them like magnets, and they pull us away from what we really want to be doing. So set yourself up for success. Willpower is not going to cut it here. You're going to have to turn things off in order to help you focus on your MITs. Another piece of advice that I implement religiously, I never stray from this, is to plan your week the Friday before. There's a lot of using time well, time management advice about when you should plan your week, and a lot of people like Sundays. And frankly, if you like Sundays, no problem. I'll just be really happy if you plan your weeks out. But let me give you a little bit of a sales pitch on why Friday is a good idea. So if you plan your week on Friday, Fridays tend to not be really great getting your deep work, intense stuff done, right? Fridays are the end of the week. We tend to have a little bit less energy for really intense focused work. However, you can usually muster up enough energy to organize your schedule for the next week. The other reason I like it is because you are maybe a little bit of tired and have a little bit of less energy. You're going to be much more realistic about what you can accomplish in the following week. That's my challenge with Sunday. We tend to be a little bit rested and we're like, we can do it all. Bring it. Stuff that calendar. Give me that appointment. Right? We're so motivated. It's better if you're not so motivated when you're doing this exercise, because then you tend to be a little bit more realistic. So every Friday, sometimes it's the morning, most of the time it's the afternoon, I will take a very intense look at the next week, and I will make sure everything is scheduled. I will send email reminders about different meetings that I have, because I don't know about you, but one of my most frustrating life experiences is when people forget to come to things. And so I don't want that to ever happen. So I am a very, very much a reminder person, because I want people to remember that there are things that are happening that I'm involved in, so nobody wastes their time. So I take a very detailed look at what's going on. I send reminders to everybody about what's going on, and I make sure that what I want to accomplish in the next week is actually doable. Because when you look at a week at a time, you can see, wow, this week's going to be really intense. Maybe some of this stuff is not going to happen this week and I need to move it to next week. Or this week is going to be so intense, I probably am going to have to work a little bit on Sunday morning in order to make it all happen. Or maybe I'm going to be working all of Tuesday evening because I just need a little bit of extra time. So you can really see. And if you look at your week as a unit, there are 168 hours in a week, which sound a lot more doable for accomplishing things than when we try to cram things into 24-hour chunks. So you may also want to consider having a template. If you are a student, and I know a lot of you are, once your semester starts, you kind of have a feel for what your Mondays are going to look like, your Tuesdays, your Wednesdays, your Thursdays, your Fridays, etc. I know that some of you, do work that comes in different shifts, and so you'll have to adjust for that. But your Tuesday and Thursday classes are going to be on Tuesdays and Thursdays, right? And you know what times they're going to be, and what time you may have family responsibilities, etc. So the things that are regular, consider putting together a template. So that way, when you go to plan the following week, you've got all of the nuts and bolts already, and then we can go ahead and adjust. Starting from scratch every week is not using your time well. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to want to slot in your have to do's. So if you're using a template, these are probably already going to be in there, but there's going to be additional things each week. And so everything that has to happen during those 168 hours, they're going to be on your schedule. Now, asterisk to this, make sure they really are have to do's, especially if your schedule is starting to look a little bit crowded. Maybe it's not a have to do. Maybe it's something that can be deleted from your world. Maybe it's something that can be delegated. Maybe it's something that can be postponed. The nice thing about looking at your week as a whole is you can see whether or not you're setting yourself up for success as far as using your time well, or whether you're really setting yourself up for a week that's a little bit crunchy. We all have weeks that are a little bit crunchy, and sometimes we can't avoid them. Abby, Carly, and Donna, and I, actually, everyone involved in this call, are having one of those weeks, and that's okay. We just have to know that the extra stuff is not happening this week. Maybe we can fit in some of those things next week. Recognize that your life has seasons. And I remember the first time I was introduced to this idea, I absolutely fell in love with it. Because if you are a person who likes to do things and accomplish things and, get stuff done, you sometimes tend to try to do it all at once. And we need to remember that life isn't built that way. There are seasons where you're going to be very much focused on school. And if you are a student, then this is your season for academics, right? And that needs to be your priority. If one of your life goals is to obtain a college degree, we need to spend a lot of time making sure that goal happens, which means maybe you're not going to Pinterest every holiday, right? Maybe you are not going to be able to afford the wardrobe that you might ultimately like, right? Maybe you really have a taste for high-end fashion, but on a student budget, that's probably not going to happen. So we can put being a high-end fashionista later in a different season, right? And we can put Pinteresting all of our holidays on a different season, and know that we'll get there. But we're not going to be able to do everything we want to do at every single time period in our life. So that'll help us feel a little bit better. So a little bit more about planning the week before. So once we put our have to do's in, then we're going to see what time is left to slot in everything else. So you want to make sure that you get some sleep. You want to pay attention to how much time you've allotted for that, right? You want to, make sure that you're moving, doing some exercise, make sure that you're giving yourself time to plan and prepare, meals, because exercising and nutrition, we all know, is a really great caveat, or a great entry point into being able to use our time well, because those things help us have energy. And when we have energy, we're able to do what we want to do. So we need to make sure we have time for those things. We obviously want to make sure we have time for our relationships, whatever those are in our lives at the moment. And again, through the seasons, those relationships are going to change. Those priorities are going to change. So we want to make sure that we do have time to connect with the people that we love and the people that we care about. That's incredibly important for our emotional health, which again leads to energy, which again leads to us using time well. So we'll see what time is left, and we'll slot in the other things that we want to have accomplished. And then we're going to have to adjust, right? Because it's not all going to work out perfectly the first time we put this puzzle together. And that's where this template comes into play later. You do this for a few weeks, it'll obviously get a lot easier. So you're going to adjust and you're going to tweak, and it's all going to fit or it's not going to. And that's okay. And then that's when things get moved, things get deleted, things get delegated, things shrink, right? Maybe you were thinking, man, I really want to go on a 2-hour bike ride on Saturday. And then you look at your calendar and you're like, you know what? 2 hours is just not going to work. But you know what? I can do an hour. So you're not eliminating the fun thing that brings you joy. You're just shrinking it a little bit. And that's okay. Maybe in a couple of weeks, we can do the 2-hour bike ride. So work it all out. And then I have a confession. So I know I told you to plan a week at a time. I actually had gotten to the habit a couple of years ago of planning 2 weeks at a time, because that really helped me look at how I was going to be able to accomplish what I want to do. I know full well week 2 is probably going to change dramatically by the time I get there, but it really helped me feel confident in my ability to manage my life and to use my time well. So that's something you may want to consider either right away or at some point. Okay, so you have this wonderful schedule. You need to keep checking in with yourself. This is definitely not a fix it and forget it. This isn't you lay out your schedule, you know what you're going to be doing each day, and then life runs perfectly. No, because you are involved and you are human. And sometimes we don't follow our own beautiful advice. Sometimes we wake up and look at what we have to do and go, you know what? Nope, that's not going to happen today. And so we're going to need to adjust. Or maybe you're halfway through the day and you realize that, holy cow, I didn't do an MIT. I didn't blah, 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 right? Whatever it is, stuff happens. And so we need to keep checking in. So I am a huge advocate of periodically asking myself, how's it going? Am I on track? Am I following this wonderful plan that I put some time and energy into on Friday afternoon? How am I doing? Do you need to course correct? One of my favorite things that I read, and I wish I could remember who said this, is that this person looked at her day like a football game, like 4 quarters. If you follow football, they play 4 quarters and then it's the game. And so the idea is that if you are a football player and you are losing the game in the first quarter, you don't just quit. Right? You play the second quarter. And if you are losing at halftime, you also don't quit. You try again and you play the third quarter. And the same thing in the fourth quarter, right? So you don't give up on the whole game just because a particular quarter didn't go the way you wanted to. And I think we need to think about our days like this. So let's just say again that you had a morning and you didn't do any of your MITs and you're feeling a little bit sad about that. We don't want to throw the whole day away. We just want to say, you know what? It's the second quarter. We're going to get reset and get ourselves back on track for what we wanted this day to look like. Sometimes it's halfway through the day when we're having to do a course correct and nothing has gone the way that we had wanted to. Again, we're not going to throw the whole day away. We're just going to do course correct and we're going to start over at halftime. And some days, right, it's 3 quarters into the day and we're thinking, oh, man, forget it. I'm just going to start over tomorrow. And there is time for that, but consider a 4th quarter before you throw it all out, because maybe you can salvage the end part of your day. How you structure when the quarters start in your day obviously will depend on your schedule. So if you are an early bird, right, you might consider, the first quarter of the morning until like maybe 11, then maybe the lunch hour till mid-afternoon till after dinner, and then from after dinner to bedtime is a thought for how you organize your quarters. But if you don't wake up until 10 every day and you go to bed at 2, right, obviously you're going to want to organize your quarters a little bit differently. But think about those types of things when you're checking in with yourself. At the end of the day, before you close your laptop or finish your to-do list and you're kind of ready to wrap it up and transition into whatever it is that you do to relax in the evening, you're going to want to do a end of the day reset. You're going to want to look at what you have planned for tomorrow and rework anything, add anything, adjust anything, and make sure it looks good and feels good to you. Again, we're doing this at the end of the day and not at the beginning for two very strategic reasons. The first one is, again, we're not going to have as much energy, so we're not going to overload our day. And the second thing is, we're not going to waste that precious time first thing when all of the research shows that's our best opportunity to get these very important things done. You definitely don't want to get up in the morning and then think about, okay, what's my plan for the day? That unfortunately will not maximize your opportunities for the day. And this way you get up, you're ready to roll, you know exactly what you're supposed to be doing and when. So just do a little end of day reset. And then at the end of each week, do a little review. Take yourself for a walk. That's what I do. I go for a long walk. This is my only walk. I love podcasts. I'm obsessed with podcasts. Hopefully y'all are too. And I think about my week. All right, how did I do? How did I do with exercise? How did I do with nutrition? How did I do with family? How did I do with work? How did I do with friends? How did I do with all of the things that are important to me? I literally have that conversation with myself. And it's really, really helpful because then I can feel very good about all of the things that went the way I want my life to go. And then the things that didn't, I can evaluate, well, what the heck happened? You know, why did I feel overwhelmed at work? Or why did I not talk to my children as much as I wanted to this week? They don't live at home. So what can I do differently, for the next week to make things feel better? Why didn't I follow my exercise plan, a couple of days this week? How can I adjust? And if you do these little weekly reviews in kind of a relaxed atmosphere, which is why I like to do it when I'm taking a walk, you tend to think of some really creative ways to make you use your time better in the next week. All right, so now we're going to talk about a word that I'm pretty sure is French. In fact, I should have looked that up before this session, but it's this idea called a mise en place. And it is we're just going to call it French. If I'm wrong, let me know. But it is a phrase that means everything in its place. And yes, for cooking. Thank you. That is where I was thinking it was coming from. So it is a French word and they use it in cooking. And so it's mise en place. And so the idea is that before you start cooking, you have everything ready. So you have all of your ingredients, you have your recipe, you have your measuring spoons, right? You have your pan, you have everything out. So that way, when you get ready to do the symphony of your cooking, everything is there for you. I think we can use this idea in lots of areas, right? So when we're getting ready to do a big project, let's make sure we have our charger for our laptop, right? Let's make sure that we have, a textbook if we need a textbook. Let's make sure that we have the instructions for whatever the assignment is, right? So let's gather all of our stuff so that way when we launch into the project, we're ready to go. That is a really nice thing to use any low energy time that you have during the day. Get all the stuff ready. And then that way, when you have a little bit of a more high energy time, maybe your next MIT moment, you're ready to launch into the particular project. So loving that idea. And again, thank you. Nika, thank you very much. Appreciate that. So a little bit more about getting stuff done. So everything that you do really needs a deadline. And when you have this deadline, one of the best things to do is to work backwards from there. You want to think about who the people are involved, what you need to do, how you need to do it, all of those things, right? And use those to help plan getting your stuff done. When other people are involved, make sure that you give folks clear directions and give them earlier than necessary deadlines. So if you are working on a collaborative project and it's due on Friday and you have to do stuff with the other people's information, give them Wednesday deadline. So that way, if they don't make the Wednesday deadline and they give it to you Thursday, you can still meet the Friday deadline. And if they do give it to you on Wednesday, you have plenty of time to do your stuff. So set yourself up for success by giving people deadlines that provide wiggle room for each of you. So in the description for this session, we promised that we would talk about procrastination. Just even though I can't see you, raise your hand if you procrastinate. I think that's probably going to be everybody on the call. Yay. Oh, yes, that's right. We can see your hands raised. Oh my God, I love it. Yes, yes, my brothers and sisters in procrastination. It is a normal human thing. And, so we certainly shouldn't beat ourselves up for it. However, we also know that sometimes it causes us to have some grief and some challenge. So we want to reduce our procrastination. So one of the first things to think about is to ask yourself why. Why are you procrastinating? Are you tired? Are you hungry? Is this hard? Do you really not want to do it? Do you not know how to do it? What is happening here? Really ask yourself what the heck is going on. And if the answer is that you don't know how to do it, then that's your first step, right? Ask for help, get clarification. If you are too tired, take a little nap, then get rolling. If you're hungry, thirsty, take care of that before you can get started on your project. But ask yourself what's getting in the way, and then have that be your first step. So honesty with yourself is a pretty important strategy here. And then give yourself the time. Sometimes we're procrastinating because we don't feel like we have time to accomplish the task. Well, figure it out, right? Go, okay, I just am not going to be able to do this today, but you know what? I could get up early and I could do it. A lot of times we don't remember that getting up early and knocking a couple of things out is sometimes a really great way to catch up with being a little bit behind. But that might not work for you, and that is okay. Remember, everything we're going to talk about is customizable. And so figure out a different block of time, but put it on that schedule. Chunk it. Sometimes we procrastinate because the task feels too overwhelming. That is a very normal thing. And so when we chunk things into smaller pieces, they become a lot more palatable. And sometimes you have to chunk it into the smallest piece ever. Like the chunk is find the instructions for the assignment on Canvas and print them out. Okay, cool. We can do that, right? And then the next chunk might be, do a Google search and, find a few references and sources. Okay, cool. And then the next chunk, right, is to, figure out what your outline is going to be for the document. You get the idea. The smaller and more palatable the chunks are, the easier it is for us to move forward. Another strategy on chunking is to just tell yourself, I'm just going to work on this for 10 minutes. I'm just going to 10 minute, I'm going to set my timer and I'm just going to do it. And then, we'll see what happens from there. Progress, momentum is a beautiful thing, and momentum will definitely keep you going. And then the other strategy we've discussed is to just do it first. If there's something that you are procrastinating on because you just don't want to do it, it's yucky, do it first and get the yucky stuff out of the way. There's a whole book, it's called Eat the Frog, which I love the concept of. And the idea is to eat the frog first. It's not really talking about actually eating frogs, but it's basically doing the yucky thing first. Evidently, this author didn't like frogs to eat. And so, you know what, Carly, I do not know who the author is, but we can perhaps maybe someone can Google and look it up. But it's either called Eat the Frog or Eat the Frog First. And it's a pretty, well-known time management book. In my family, we actually send the frog emoji to each other, my daughters and I, hey, I ate the frog, or are you need a frog today, to help each other motivate, because it's a little bit more fun to talk about eating frogs than it is talking about yucky tasks. So that might be something fun for y'all to do. All right. This idea is choosing accuracy over speed. And because when we don't choose accuracy and we choose speed, we tend to waste time, and that is not using time well. So thank you, Paula. Absolutely. Yes, yes. Yeah, Eat the Frog, 21 great ways to stop procrastinating and get more done. It's everything we've been talking about here. Perfect. So as you know, your credibility is your currency, right? The more credible people think you are, the more valuable you are. And so having accuracy is a really important part of having credibility. So in order to choose accuracy over speed, one of the strategies is to make sure you reread everything before sending, because we've all experienced clicking send and then seeing a typo, right, as the email goes into the abyss. The better plan, right, is to reread everything before we send it and make sure that the mistake isn't there in the first place. Another great strategy is to let drafts sit. If it's an important thing, draft the document, draft the email, and then go do something else for a while and then come back to your draft. It's a really good way to catch mistakes. Another great strategy is to read out loud. And another great one is to print it out and edit it on paper. And if we have a really critical document, send it to someone else to take a look at it as well. Find a proofreading buddy. You proofread their stuff, they proofread yours, and everybody wins. And then give yourself some wiggle room. When we are not frantic, we tend to get more done. One of the ways that we can give ourselves wiggle room is to quit over scheduling. And I know that's difficult because especially right now, there are so many opportunities in your life that it's really difficult not to say yes to all of them. However, the smaller amount of opportunities that you really do well is actually going to serve you better. And so trust me, I know that's difficult. I am 51 and I am still struggling with that, but it is really a gift to ourselves when we quit over scheduling. So a couple of strategies. This is a really brutal question, but I love it. Would you want the people you love to have your schedule? It's kind of intense, huh? When you look at your schedule, is it a gift to yourself? Or is it too much? Think about if you were to have your parents, your children, your best friend, and if you were to say, here, take my life for a week, would you feel that was a nice thing or not? And again, we might need to do some adjustments based on what the answer to that question is. A little bit more on wiggle room. Google Calendar is kind of doing this, and a lot of people are getting obsessed with this lately, and I'm loving it. But this is actually an old idea, is instead of a 30-minute meeting to have a 20-minute meeting, and instead of an hour-long meeting to have a 50-minute meeting. You can absolutely get the same amount of stuff done, and then you're giving yourself that gift of those 10 minutes. Really powerful. Don't have every single day back to back to back to back to back. I fully realize that there are some chunks of days that have to be back to back, and that's okay. But we have to have some spaces in between, particularly when we get back to being able to be with each other in person, because you have experienced life when we could see each other in person. And you know that some of the most wonderful experiences you've had are the things that weren't on your schedule. They're the impromptu conversation with a colleague, a classmate after class, a conversation with a professor in the hallway, a random conversation in line at a coffee shop with a stranger, right? And if we are rushing from thing to thing, we're not going to have the time and space for that to happen. So give yourself a little breathing room when you can. Be a little early to everything. And this helps give you wiggle room by giving you a chance to take a deep breath and get your ducks in a row for whatever is happening next. And instead of picking up your phone, which is what a lot of us do when we are early for things, I encourage you to just take a moment and think about what's coming up next and what you want to get out of that thing. So if it's class, right, you might be like, I really want to learn, or I really need to get the information I need to do my paper or my project, right? Have those goals in mind. If it's lunch with a friend, just give yourself a deep breath and go, you know what? I am choosing, to spend the next hour with this person because I value them. Let me make sure I'm giving them my full attention and I'm not, scrolling on my phone the whole time when I should be talking to them. Now, not that we can't scroll on our phone and show them cool pictures that we think they might enjoy. It's not like I hate phones, please don't get me wrong. But, there's a time and a place, right, for everything. This is the best one. I love this. So often, and this doesn't happen as much now. Well, actually, that's not true. It does. Even though we're going from Zoom to Zoom, but when we used to go from place to place, sometimes we would be late, right? Because we have to do one more thing. So raise your hand if that has happened. Oh my goodness. Yes. Oh my gosh. It's like, I just need to do one more thing and then I can leave. Love it. So one way to stop the one more thing habit is to identify what time management folks call the sweet. And that is the stop working on everything else time. So if you have a Zoom, for example, at 4 o'clock, like y'all did today, what is the time that you need to stop doing stuff in order to be able to be on the Zoom at 4 o'clock? If you have class at 2 o'clock, what is the time that you need to stop working on things in order to be on time for class? And you get the idea, right? Is figure out when you need to stop and obviously set a timer, an alarm, whatever you need to do. And then honor your sweet, right? Just say, you know what? This is what I have decided. I need to stop. Don't do one more thing. Give yourself that breathing room. Give yourself that gift of being able to recenter. So now we're going to take poll number 4. So Donna, if you're ready, we'll do our poll number 4. All right. How likely are you to use some things from this session to help use your time well? Just so you know, I'm totally going to cry if someone puts not likely, but no pressure. I'm kind of kidding. All right, looks like that's probably all we're going to get. Yeah, great. So it does look like folks are going to be able to use some of these things from this session, which is great. Cool. So we're going to have questions in just a sec, but I have one more thing I want to share. And that is the idea of staying inspired. So let's just say that these ideas have resonated with you. Give yourself more fuel to keep using your time well. And oops, excuse me, push the wrong button. You may want to choose to read, watch, and listen to things about productivity. Find out what you enjoy so you can continually getting different ideas. I do have one thought, and that is the Before Breakfast podcast. It is on iHeartRadio. And what I love about it is it's Monday through Friday and it's less than 5 minutes. So every day when I'm getting ready for the day, I listen to the Before Breakfast podcast. And it gives me a little bit of snippet of a wonderful using time well idea. Some of them I'm already doing, some of them I don't want to do. A lot of times it gives me something really cool to think about. So again, not an ad, but I think it's something you'll really enjoy. All right, so that is the end of my prepared stuff. I would love to answer any questions. And if you have things that you think that you might implement, I'd love, for you to put notes in the chat about what are some of the ideas that resonated with you. Luca already started, so we'll just take Luca's lead. And he likes the idea of planning your week ahead on a Friday. I would love to know what some of the other ideas that really resonated with you were. And then I'd also love to answer any questions if folks have questions. We've got the Q&A feature, and Abby's going to facilitate that for us. So yeah. All right. Yes. Okay. Thanks, Paula. Yeah, I think we definitely need to have a place for that backlog of we've got to have a place to capture that. Yeah, and it is a constant massaging. I really appreciate that word, Paula, because in order to really use your time well, you have to spend a lot of time thinking about your time, and that's a delicate balance, right? Because you could spend your entire life planning and not doing anything, but you also have to spend some time planning, or you won't be able to do everything that you want to do. And so it's a dance. It is a dance for sure. Thank you for that. Abby, do we have any questions?
Not for the Q&A, but I do. Oh, there is one just popped up. Okay. How do you manage repurpose your day's schedule when something unexpected pops up?
Yes. And I don't know, because that doesn't happen to me. I'm obviously totally kidding. Yes, that is a beautiful question, because there's always something unexpected that happens, and we can plan everything, and then sometimes things get turned upside down. So that's one of the reasons why I really am obsessed about working on my MITs first thing in the morning. Because when things do get turned upside down, they tend not to happen super early in the morning. And so that time tends to stay protected. And so I'm able to get the things that are super important and have to get done. And then if I have to reconfigure everything else, then we go ahead and do that. And that's another reason why my end of the day reset is so important, because if I have had a day where everything gets a little topsy-turvy, at the end of the day, I can take a look at, okay, what didn't get done? What are the huge priorities again for tomorrow? And maybe because of this thing that happened, maybe some things aren't as important as I thought they were. Sometimes these little wrinkles in our schedule give us a little perspective, and or they change our priorities. So the tinkering is an important part of recovering from there. So hopefully those two strategies are helpful.
Okay, well, I have a question. How do you break out of an unproductive slump?
Oh, such a good idea. So I am a huge fan of physical activity as a slump buster. So I really am a huge advocate of just putting on your tennis shoes and going for a walk. I'm a big fan of, doing some yoga stretches, or putting on music and just doing a few dance moves, right? Or maybe even just jogging in place in the kitchen while you wait for your tea to heat up in the microwave. Doing something physical with your body tends to help your brain get out of whatever rut it's in. The other thing is that it's very difficult to get out of a rut when you're staring at your laptop, right? Because then you're in the mode where it happened, and that's probably not going to be very useful to you. So I definitely advocate get up, walk around, again, yoga, dancing, whatever the fun movement thing is for you, and then take a moment and go, all right, what can I accomplish in the next few minutes? And that's where that chunking comes in. Maybe you're still feeling a little bit overwhelmed, but you're like, you know what? I can work on this puppy for 10 minutes. I can do that. And maybe that's all I do, but at least I will feel like I'm moving closer toward my goal.
And how would you minimize distractions?
So hard in 2021, right? Oh my gosh, it's so difficult. And honestly, we just have to do the best we can. And we also need to think about what is distracting for us. Some people love to work to music. And that is very wonderful and empowering for them. Some people have to work to music that doesn't have words, right? Otherwise we'll sing along. So it has to be instrumental. So maybe, think about whether or not that music does work for you or doesn't work for you. I literally don't have the window open for my email when I'm trying to work on my MITs, because I love to see what the emails are coming in, right? And I try to not work on email until it's time to work on email. Phone on silent, phone turned over. I'm actually implementing that a lot more these days, because even if it's on silent, you can see the light change, right? And then turning off your notifications for everything but phone and text on your phone. And I know some of you have heard me talk about that before. Those little numbers, those little badge icon numbers are like magnets, and it's really difficult to ignore them. So if they're not there, then you tend to be able to stay a little bit more focused. So I think a myriad of strategies is important for the distraction situation. If you've got a door, sometimes we are blessed with doors. Let's use them. Headphones, if you don't have a door, right? It's the universal symbol for I'm working, don't talk to me. Because sometimes it's humans, right? That are the distractions. Setting time when you do deal with humans, so that way you can have protected time when you don't have to deal with humans. All of those things. Yeah, and Paula, that's a really great suggestion. If you have roommates, you could let them know that, you know what, this is time where I love you, but we're not going to be having a conversation, and encourage them to have that time too. Because if they're going to have those special times when they get to have life all to themselves, then they're going to be much more likely to honor your time, because they know that you're going to honor theirs. So it's kind of like you have this whole agreement that we're going to give each other these particular time slots and we're not going to bother. And, if you think of something that you want to share during that time, right, that's when those wonderful sticky notes are great. Put it on their door. And that way, when they're done with their time, they can get out and look at all the stickies. But that is great. Wonderful strategy. Sounds like you have good roommates too, Paula, which is great. That's important. All right. Well, we're right at 5 o'clock. Abby, did you have any more questions, or are we gonna go ahead and wrap up?
I think that's it for me, and I think that's it for our participants. So
Okay,
we're good.
excellent. Well, in order to use our time well, we definitely want to wrap up. So thank you so much for spending the afternoon with us. We hope that you obtained some information that was of value. We are recording this session and it will be up on the MCJ website toward the end of the semester. All of those links will be there. We hope you will join us for the next 2 sessions and have a fabulous evening where you are strategic and you use your time well and you enjoy what's important to you. Thanks a lot, everybody. Take care. Bye.